welcome back to another video. I am Jade and I help people reclaim back their power physically, mentally and spiritually. Now today we're going to be talking about astral projection and why it isn't exactly always safe. So I've seen many videos of people throughout the years claiming that astral projection is 100% safe, no matter what, all the time. And unfortunately, this is definitely false. This always stems from a very toxic positivity that no matter what you do, everything is safe. Spell work, astral projection, even meditation is like no matter what sort of spiritual ritual or practice you do, you can't go wrong and it's always safe. This is extremely dangerous to have this sort of mindset because in reality, that is certainly not the case and it can definitely go wrong. You can definitely accidentally conjure things or bump into some, negative entities, etc. So it's very important to stay very grounded when on the spiritual path and to be wise and always have some sort of caution. And that is not meaning that you live in fear. A lot of people don't want to sort of face the truth of there are definitely negative entities and bad things can happen to good people because of their fear. Ironically, it takes a lot more courage to actually face negative beings, and you have to be fearless to do that, as opposed to just being ignorant and saying no, they don't exist. So, in this matrix, we live in, a whole soup of different dimensions. There's so many different dimensions and you can access this in your astral body. And it's just like when people say, to do astral projection and, is completely safe. It's very 50-50. And I have seen this in my practice and I have seen this. I've always naturally been able to astral project since I was very young. So I've done it many times. And I've seen this happen with a lot of ex-New Agers because they are wrongly told that there is no demons, there is no negative things, no harm that can happen to you when you are in the astral world. And then something bad does happen to them, despite them being having no fear and, no negativity and not being in a bad mood when they did astral project. When something bad then happens to them, they think, oh my God, it's all demonic, it's all wrong. And then they run to the Christian church. And I don't blame them and they only run to the Christian church because they're the only religion that openly speaks about demonic entities the most. But there's many red flags within that religion and I'll do a separate video on that. However, this is the biggest flaw that I see within the New Age movement is they are way too off the scale of everything's good, all beings are all love, they're all light, they all love you. And the harsh truth is they don't. There is many, of course, benevolent, beautiful, incredible beings of light and of love. But there, of course, is the opposite. The typical thing that most New Agers say in regards to the rule of astral projecting, to not come into contact, to not manifest meeting a negative entity, is, oh, don't do it when you're depressed, don't do it when you're in a bad mood, never try to astral project when you're in fear, blah, blah, blah. But from my own experience, I can say that this is false and this doesn't always protect you. Of course, that is a good rule to go by. You should never astral project, attempt to do it when you are in a low vibration. But there are many people who have astral projected when they're not in a low vibration, when they're not in a bad mood or going through any sort of issues, and have still, of course, got attacked or come into contact with negative entities. And this is because it's just very, very 50-50. It's the same as this world. So, for example, if you live in New York and you are a woman and you go out into the roughest streets, so I don't know, Harlem, a very dodgy place in New York, in the middle of the night, dressed in a very, mini tight skirt, etc. So you're showing a lot of your body. It's very 50-50. Like, it's foolish and unwise, of course, to do that. You wouldn't do that. as you know, in this reality, would you? Like, most women have obviously common sense to not go out in the middle of the night half naked, because you know, there is a high chance that you may get attacked by a man, you may get attacked or raped, etc. You're asking for trouble, basically. And astral projection is kind of the same. If you are very inexperienced in your own sort of spiritual development, if you're at the beginning stages, if you have not done shadow work, if you very much live from your ego still, if you have a lot of inner darkness, if you have a lot of issues that you haven't dealt with yet, but most importantly, if you're only astral projecting just for fun, and you're only doing it because you just want to use it as some sort of escapism from your own life, etc., then you are really, really asking for trouble. But even so, if you're only astral projecting because you think that it's 100% safe, that as well is a really, really big mistake. Because if you have that mindset, you are now not on guard. And if you're not on guard, you're not protecting yourself. And it's so important whilst on the spiritual path and when trying to astral project that you know how to protect yourself, and you know that you are on a strong vibration, you do have a lot of energy, you do have a lot of chi, because if you do unfortunately come into contact with a negative being, you will have enough energy to protect yourself, you'll have enough energy to fight them off, to push them away from you. But another problem that can happen with astral projection is sometimes an entity may get attached to you, and this can always be very, very, very bad, because a lot of the times these entities will of course be negative entities, because a light being will never get attached to you unless they it's very, very rare, because a lot of the times angels and beings of a very high vibration are extremely busy. They have certainly just not got the time to be doing that. But there are certainly many negative parasitic type entities that will happily prey on humans because they want your energy. Angels and light beings do not prey on humans. That's why they are more distant from us, because they don't need us. They just try their best to help us, but unfortunately negative beings seek humans out because they want your energy, because it's food to them. So if you were inexperienced and you're just walking around the astral realms and you don't really know where you are, you have no way of protecting yourself, you have no way of shielding yourself, because there's certain techniques you can do to shield yourself so you're not seen by these entities. They of course will see you. And they always know that you're human, because they can tell instantly by your frequency, by your energy, and of course by your cores that goes back to your body. So they know that you have a body and you of course don't belong there. And the problem with this is, if they want, they can of course follow you back. And they can then start causing problems and haunting your house and trying to feed off you and just basically make your life a living hell. Depending on what sort of entity you attract. Sometimes it can be mild, sometimes it can be pretty severe. And again, I've seen this happen with ex-New Agers. There was one guy who, Stephen Barncard, you've probably heard of him, who has, gone to Christianity now. The same thing happens with him and this guy that he interviewed, who used to astral project a lot and meet a lot of alien entities, until one day he came across a very sort of negative one. And the entity told him, if you ever want help astral projecting and you can't get out your body, just call my name and I'll help you. See, these entities are extremely cunning. They're tricksters. They know what to do. They know how to trick people. And of course, this guy wasn't stupid, and he knew it had bad vibes, it had bad energy, and he said, no thanks. And then he quickly went back to his body. But unfortunately, because it still pissed off the entity, because he said no, that entity then became like a poltergeist and started haunting him and his whole family and scaring them, terrifying them. And it was really, really bad, and he just didn't know what to do. And he couldn't astral project again. He felt like he couldn't get out his body, as if something was pushing him in, because he was trying to make him conjure his name. Because when you conjure something or you call out to something, this is why you got to be really careful when you're trying to work with deities, etc. You are giving consent. And as soon as you give consent to a deity or an entity pretending to be a deity, etc., you have now opened the door to your life. You have now opened the door to your home, to your energy, to your body. So that entity is now basically attached itself to you. It's created an etheric connection to you. And now it can start feeding off your energy. It can now plant thoughts into your head, etc. So, of course, they all have different agendas. Some can be very severe, where they actually want your body, and then that's obviously possession, etc. And some can just want to puppet you to do certain things. Some can just want to feed off your fear. So they just create a lot of stress and havoc and, you know, fearful situations in your life. There's many, many different types. So this is why it's very important to always have caution with astral projection. You've just had your initial spiritual awakening and you are new to meditation, you are new to the spiritual path, or you're a new witch, or etc. I would definitely not recommend astral projecting yet, because it is a very it's a very difficult skill, not just to actually come out your body, but to actually protect yourself whilst you're in the astral realms. You need to have really strong chi. You need to really have that inner wisdom and understanding that there are certainly negative entities that can definitely try to trick you or even hurt you. This has happened to me before, and I was in a very good, you know, positive state of mind when this happened to me. I actually, one time, a very quick story, I actually got stuck in the hell realm, and normally I can get out my body, go back to my body like that. And that's another really horrible thing they can sometimes do, is they can stop you going back to your body, or they make it really, really difficult going back to your body. So one time I got stuck in this very horrible realm, and it was a really dark place. Something obviously pulled me into this place because I didn't go there intentionally. And I was just for ages fighting all these different types of entities until I ran out of there and got out of there. And for ages I was trying to go back to my body, you know, wake up, go back to my body. And I couldn't. So because my energy was so weak, normally, you know, you have to have enough energy to actually go back to your body. But unfortunately, because they had weakened me so much, I didn't have enough to wake up, to go back. And I was running out onto this field, and it was just literal darkness. And I was literally running away from these entities in pitch black, until luckily I actually joined hands. Something stopped me, and I joined hands with this light being. And as I was holding onto their hands, they pulled me back into my body. And this beautiful white light was surrounding me, and I actually woke up in my bed, still holding on to their hands. Like I could literally still feel their hands and see them above me. And it was like a little cherub, sort of, kind of like what a typical cherub angel looks like. And it was so, so real. And people who, you know, have experienced this, you'll know what I mean. It literally felt like a real human being. And I was still in my room. It was very bright. And then I actually felt their hair, and they kissed my forehead. But because I was so on edge after being literally traumatized by all those other entities, I was still scared. And as soon as I felt its sort of wet lips on my, I think it kissed my eye actually, it freaked me out. And I shooed it away, then I got up and I was fine. But I regret shooing it away because I know that entity literally helped me, it helped save me. So sometimes entities of light will help you if you're in like really severe situations like that. But when this happened, I was, you know, on a very high vibration. I was really happy. I had nothing depressing going on in my life. It literally was so random and just happened out the blue. Because I found when I was with my ex-partner years ago, I found every time I would stay at his flat, for some reason, I would always astral project, and it would always be quite a negative experience. I had many really terrifying things happen to me whilst in his flat, which I'll do stories, paranormal story videos on. and that was one of them. And it didn't really happen much when I was in my own home, but it always would in his flat, always when he'd go to work as well. So always early morning time, because for whatever reason, wherever he lived, his flat or the area or the land that the building was on must have had some sort of gateway, because sometimes it's not you, it's actually where you're astral projecting. There's many different gateways all around planet Earth, and these gateways are like portals for your astral body. So entities can come in and out of these portals, and I believe in this case with his flat, there was definitely a portal there. And I also had this happen in the very first house I lived in, which was extremely haunted, like really bad. And I was later told, years later, by a psychic, that there was indeed a portal there. And we later found out that that house was actually built on the burial ground. So no wonder. So this is another thing to take into consideration, is where are you astral projecting? Because if you are astral projecting in a really toxic, bad energy, bad sort of environment, that even like a haunted house or just anywhere that has really bad energy. So even if you live, like if your family is like quite toxic, their energy will attract a lot of negative entities to them. You have to be really cautious where you're astral projecting. So, because even if you're like really high vibrational, if you astral project, you're popping out into that place where a lot of entities may be, or a lot of gateways may be, a lot of portals to dark realities, dark dimensions. So, because in a place, if something bad has happened, it can cause a tear, it can cause a rip to a dark place. And this is why demons and negative entities love people fighting and being angry and depressed, because it makes it easier for them to then come into our realm. But still obviously in the astral realm. It's a bit confusing and a bit deep, but I'll do more videos on this topic. But that's another thing to always take into consideration, is where are you astral projecting? Make sure it's not a dodgy place. And it's not always obvious until you do it, unfortunately. So this is a really key thing to address, because unfortunately if you do attract something, they can obviously drain you very much. Like a few times I've had negative experiences. Of course, I'll wake up extremely drained. Another rule of thumb is to never ever astral project if you have any physical illness in your body now in this realm. Because if you are physically ill, even with like a headache or something quite mild, your energy is weakened. And that means your chi, your spiritual energy, is weakened. So you do not want to be in the astral realm if you have a weakened chi, if you have weakened energy, because if something does attack you, you won't be able to push them off easily, and it'll be a very traumatic experience. And of course, they'll suck a nice chunk of energy from you even more, making you even more drained and even more ill in the physical realm, in your own body. So you have to be very strong, you have to be very fit, very healthy, and you have to be in a really high vibration, and you have to be very experienced. But just know that even if you are in a very high vibration, that still doesn't mean that you're always protected, because little, naughty entities, they'll always try it on with you. Because if you are really, if you're a very loving being, a very high, powerful being, your light is very strong, your energy is very strong, and they feel that. So you're like a nice big happy meal to them. So they will still try now and then to take you on. But the difference is you will easily be able to flick them away from you, and they will not be able, they won't stand a chance against you, because you're like Super Saiyan and they're just like a little slug. So it will be very hard for them to even try to attack you. But it doesn't mean to say that you won't now and then come across one that is quite strong. In my own experience, I've encountered many different types of entities, and some of them were very easy, very weak. I could easily flick them off. But then I've come across some that were very strong, really strong, where I struggled to get them off me. And this was when I was very fit, very healthy, in a really high vibration. So just bear that in mind. Just know that it is a risk. And you have to be fully prepared if this does happen, and know that it doesn't mean that, you know, the spiritual path is demonic and all evil, because it's not. You can meet some beautiful beings in the astral realms as well. But it's like planet Earth. There's good ones and there's bad ones. It just depends where you go. And there's so many different dimensions where there'll be higher, like heavenly dimensions, and then you have the lower dimensions. There's actually 7 like that are near us, higher dimensions, and then there's 7 lower dimensions that are near us, but there is many all beyond. So just bear that in mind, and know that unfortunately it's not as easy just to be, you know, love and light and just make sure you're happy. Like, you will now and then might come across even sexual ones. And again, you've got to be really careful with these ones, because they will disguise themselves. They're very much like an incubus, succubus. They will disguise themselves as very attractive, very beautiful. They'll probably be like your perfect man, perfect woman. Or they'll just have an extremely seductive energy. But they are in disguise as an illusion. I think it's actually Ryan Cropper. Sorry if I said his name wrong. He obviously does a lot of astral projection videos. He actually had an experience like this, where he went into a hotel room in astral form, of course, and he saw, I think, 3 or 4 women on the bed, you know, trying to lure him in, attractive women. And out of nowhere, obviously, one of his spirit guides, or, you know, a good entity, ran in and quickly stopped him and said, do not touch them, do not go near those entities. Look in the mirror. And then when he looked in the mirror, they were actually monstrous. They were horrible, vile, demonic, slug type, I can't remember, like just really hideous monsters. But they were disguising themselves as really beautiful women, because if he actually went there and engaged with them and fooled around, they would have taken a huge chunk of his energy, because that's what they do. This is what, you know, I can't say it, but incubus, succubus entities do. They feed off that energy. So there's many things to be very careful about with astral projection, so don't take it lightly. It's probably not as severe as what you see in like Insidious, for example, what they make out. Obviously it's Hollywood, they dramatize everything, but there is certainly some truth to it. And there are definitely entities, you know, in rare occasions that they do want to like possess your body and take it over. But like I said, there will be extremely strong ones, and it is more rare, but be careful. So that being said, if you want to help heighten your intuition, I do have a free ebook called The Third Eye Detox, and I'll put the description down below. And that will, of course, help you become more clairvoyant, so you can tell which entities are good and bad, etc. And of course, it will heighten your psychic abilities as well. So it will help you do things like astral projection. But at the same time, be wise and have that clairvoyancy, so you can know, you know, who's good and who's bad. I also have the chakra cleanse ebook, so that's a more intense cleanse where it will physically align or spiritually align all your chakras in a week. A very powerful hack that I use and love myself. So I'll also put that down below. If you want one-to-one spiritual guidance or counseling, I now offer that also. So basically it's an audio call, so just audio only, phone call, probably an hour to 2 hours of any issues that you need help with, any guidance that you need help with. That I use my own discernment and also my own spirit guides to help give you any advice. I'm a natural channeler, so a lot of the times I get messages, etc. Messages that you need to hear, of course. So I will link all of that down below. And until next time, lots of love and light. Ahimsa.